Good evening, Honorable Minister, Sir, Principal Secretary, IT and Industries, board members, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to T-Hub. Nice to see so many happy faces, some faces which are new and some faces which are old, right? And I think sir, age is in the mind, sir. So today I think is, a legacy of the vision, the leadership, the farsightedness, first of all of our Chief Minister, Minister Garu, Jayesh Garu, our board members, in conceiving of this institution. Today, as you know, we've been in this building now for close to 4 months. The new T-Hub 2.0, I keep telling people, the game has just begun. Right? So we've played a good game so far, but the game ahead of us is going to be super interesting. And as I was saying earlier in the afternoon, we are trying to climb Everest. We've got to base camp. There's so much more we need to do to really get Hyderabad, Telangana its rightful place in the sun. So I think it's been 7 years of learning, 7 years of collaboration, 7 years of success, 7 years of empowering entrepreneurs, and 7 years also of some failures, right? The first question I keep getting asked is, how many unicorns have you produced? So I obviously try and deflect that question by saying, listen, we are in the business of empowering entrepreneurs, creating value, them creating jobs. I hope in the near future we'll get some unicorns and you'll see some of them in the hour to follow. So at T-Hub, what we are trying to now do is try and make our programs. So as you know, in this new building, we have right now about 260 startups in the building. And we are also working with about 200 startups who are outside the building through our programs. We hope by the middle of next year, all the 5 floors which have still to be furnished will be completed. And at full capacity, we'll have close to about 800 startups in the building. So effectively, we'll probably impact close to about 1100 startups on a cumulative basis. What we've been trying to do is to see how we can really add value to our community. How do we really add value to our entrepreneurs? So one of the things which we've been seized of is everything we do, we should be able to measure, right? I think Minister Garu is a big believer in metrics, in quantitative and qualitative metrics for driving outcomes. So in that context, we came up with a framework, list of things which are easy to remember, simplistic framework, but something which I think kind of is starting to resonate. So the framework we use is what we call the 6 M's, which is how do we help our startups get market access, which is the most important thing for a startup. How do we help them get access to money, right, which is required once you get past the initial friends, family, relatives, bootstrapping round. How do we help them get high quality mentors, right, who've been there, done that, and can support them. How do we help them get talent, right? So for example, yesterday we had an internship mela. We had about 70 of our startups. We had 2,000 students. And we got a lot of support from our ecosystem. I don't know if Charan is here in the hall somewhere, but they worked with our team as one. And we got, I think, 400 young people got internship opportunities. We need to do a lot more of that. And then, of course, the last 2 aspects, which are softer, are one is around what we call motivation and mindset, right? So everyone who's been an entrepreneur knows it's a long, tough journey. Sometimes can be very lonely. And you can learn from people who've been there, done that before, and you can learn from their mistakes, and hopefully, obviously, you'll make new ones as you go along. And the last one is about methodologies. So what we've tried to do is to reimagine our programs. How do we make them much more impactful, much more outcome oriented is what we are trying to drive at. So I think when I think about Telangana, I think Minister Garu keeps referring to Telangana as a startup state. I think the life of an entrepreneur is similar to that of a startup state in many ways, right? And many things in common. So for example, you need to have passion to innovate. You need to have patience. You need to persevere. You need to have what I call curiosity, which is very important because you need to keep learning new things. You need to be highly self-driven, and you need to have a desire to serve, common to building a state and common to building a business. So I think the entrepreneurs whom you are going to meet today, we have 26 of them. So we have 9 who are across general categories we call them, and then 17 entrepreneurs across different sectors: healthcare, mobility, agri-tech, food, space tech, etc., whom we are going to recognize. So I think this is the beginning. I do believe many of them have the potential, not just from a valuation metric. I think we had some great panel discussions earlier today. We had two of our biggest VCs who were sitting here in the second row. We had entrepreneurs. They said, don't worry about valuation. You focus on building lasting, sustainable businesses, and the value will follow. Right? So that's a cue for us. So just quickly trying to summarize upfront, what is it that we are trying to do at T-Hub? So we see our role as an ecosystem orchestrator, not just an incubator. We are trying to, obviously, while I think there's been a lot of, obviously there's a lot of merit in the saying that money will follow good entrepreneurs, but we are doing everything we can to see how we can get more institutional investors to, first of all, get a understanding of what is happening in Hyderabad, of the great businesses which are getting built in Hyderabad, many of whom you will meet shortly, for those of you who have not met them before, and try to get them to start investing in these companies. So that's one part, about enabling scale by institutional capital. The second thing which we are doing a lot of is around building communities and partnerships, right? So we've started a community for Web 3.0. We'll soon be launching an initiative on quantum computing. We launched India's first semiconductor community about a month ago, right? So we'll see a lot more in, particularly in areas where we think we can take a leadership position, apart from the well-known sectors like healthcare, mobility, enterprise tech, and so on. Our focus is going to be on everything we do, we should be able to measure, right? I'm maybe a little old-fashioned. What you cannot measure, you can't manage, right? So focus on driving metrics for outcomes. And last but not least, we are also conscious of our obligation to ensure that the spirit of entrepreneurship is not just limited to Hyderabad, but it also spreads into other districts. So we're working here with, where is Vijay? Yeah, Vijay here. He's promised to help us get started in the IT towers, and we'll start that this quarter. As you also know, that we are already working in advanced conversations with 3 other states, and we hope to get started sometime in the early new year with those states. So with that, thank you for coming, and look forward to meeting many of you over after the session is over. And I want to again place on record our deep, heartfelt appreciation of all the tremendous support we get from the government, particularly from the Minister Garu, from Jayesh Garu, in building out this ecosystem. Thank you. It's now my pleasure. Yeah, it's now my pleasure and privilege to call on stage our Honorable Minister for IT, Municipal Administration and Development Industries, KTR Garu, Principal Secretary, IT and Industries and Commerce, Jayesh Garu, and our board member and Director Triple IT, Professor PJ Narayan, onto stage for the awards.
Next to excellence is the appreciation of it. On the occasion of this wonderful gathering, we feel honored in recognizing and appreciating our startups. We have 9 special categories of growth, bootstrapping, most innovative, resilience, women-led, so on and so forth. Then we have specific sector categories also where we are awarding the startups. I invite the entrepreneurs who are AI-powered integrated health benefits platform helping organizations, employees with a preventive, predictive and highly personalized healthcare solution. And they have been our star startup today in Telangana. It's none other than KTR. They have raised total funding of around 21 million USD and they are serving 500 plus organizations. they could not be here. Request MSR. Oh, okay. Great. Siddharth from Celestial, please. As entrepreneurs, we all aim for growth, and this award is to recognize one such startup who has shown immense growth, leading them to raise 2 million in pre-series A. Our T-Hub startup itself, TurboHire. As a high-growth startup category, T-Hub 2022. Now I invite Smart Winner, a T-Hub startup, the world's #1 mobile first sales productivity platform. They are getting the Bootstrap Champ because they have raised their venture and turned out to be champions in marketing, making their revenue of 1 million to receive the Bootstrap Champ award. Coming up next, we have the category of Comeback Champ 2022, and the award goes to Prospect AI. It's always about how we come back and not long how we been in low sides. Now let's recognize that startup which has disrupted the startup ecosystem, going through challenges and redefining and reshaping themselves. Next, we want to appreciate our T-Hub startup that is working in a space that is helping women move ahead, providing an honest and free choice to all the menstruators to have comfortable and let me be a health and wellness brand to receive the Women Ahead 2022 award. Resilience comes from the lessons and skills we absorb as we grow. Now, there's one such startup over the 7 years who have been part of T-Hub, our own Lab 32 startup, Monitra, who seeks to address the world's pressing health problems using medical data driving insights to shape healthcare delivery. Coming up next category, we have Most Promising Innovation 2022 award going to Blue Jay, who envisioned to make flying simple and sustainable. They are also our T-Hub startup and are also funded through T-Fund. Our next category, we have Top Innovator 2022 award again for Perceptime, a deep tech robotics startup building dual-arm robots that are low cost and contextually intelligent. Now I invite those who have raised a 51 million US dollar fund, Series B funding round, the largest in the Indian space tech. It's none other than Skyroot, leading space tech startup 2022. We all know D2C is the most happening space and segment of the market today. Successfully, this startup has been only footwear brand to disrupt the space by creating comfortable wear with recycled plastic bottles, recycled tires, organic cotton. It's none other than under leading online D2C startup award, we have Niman. We invite Niman under the category of Leading Online D2C Startup Award 2022. Scaling globally is every startup's long-term goal. Under Scaling Heights Globally category, we have Roadmetrics, a deep tech startup on a mission to map road and street data at scale. Request MSR to collect the award on behalf of Roadmetrics. In India, groceries are delivered in 10 minutes, but ambulances take 45 minutes time. This one startup is focusing on 8-minute ambulance paradiagram, and it's none other than Stanplus under the category Emerging Healthcare Startup 2022. Coming next, we have Startup under Most Promising Health Tech Startup 2022 Award. The award goes to Onward Assist, which helps improve cancer treatment outcomes by solving the problems of accurately and timely cancer pathology diagnosis and simplifying the process. Now let's invite T-Hub supported Emerging Tech Healthcare Startup Portal under Emerging Tech Healthcare 2022 category. Now, we want to recognize our T-Angel startup, which is supported by Y Combinator and who have raised 500k USD, PayCrunch, a UPI-based credit line for Gen Z. Most Promising FinTech Startup 2022. Let's recognize one more startup from the fintech sector who has been rapidly democratizing finance with their marketplace for loans and helping people with their financial products. It's none other than My Money Comma to receive the fastest growing fintech startup award 2022. Building an ecosystem for consumers to shift, engage and retain in healthy lifestyle, Swap has stood as the most promising in the food tech space. I invite Swap to receive the award of Most Promising Food Tech Startup 2022. Now I invite our food, disrupting the traditional centralized food processing industry by establishing a network of farmer franchises across different parts of the geography as the most promising agri-tech startup 2022. Let's invite Banyan Nation, one of the India's vertically integrated plastic recycling companies that helps global brands use more recycled plastic instead of normal plastic, to receive Leading Social Enterprise Startup Award 2022. Let's invite our own Lab 32 startup, Aviro's world's first video AI marketplace with applications on facial recognition, crowd and vehicle counting, under the category of Most Promising Smart City Startup 2022. Next, I invite Rozgar Card, a social impact job platform that sources and creates access for blue-collar workers to employment opportunities, under the category of Workforce Enablement Startup Award 2022. Rozgar Card under Workforce Enablement Startup Award 2022. Now I invite our T-Hub funded and our co-working startup who has been promising a SaaS-based enterprise, Blue Copa, a finance operations automation platform, under the category of Most Promising Enterprise SaaS Startup 2022. This startup has automated construction using drones and helmet monitoring systems that augments project managers' construction made easier. Construction to receive the Most Promising Construction Tech Startup Award 2022. +30,000 local location access, deep tech products, fully developed in-house equipment. They are none other than Race Energy, building the world's largest battery swapping network across. I invite Race Energy to receive the Leading EV Startup Award. Last but not least, we want to encourage the budding startup, our own EV startup who has been promising and mission to change the way we move with their innovative e-bicycles. Most promising EV startup category 2022, Urban Automotive.
Our Minister Garu to please speak and inspire our young audience.
Good evening. I think I tweeted about a couple of weeks ago that I can't read without my reading glasses, so I'm going to have a tough time. But I'll act like I'm able to read everything, and you'll pretend like you're able to also process everything, all right? Good evening. Thank you, to the entire team of T-Hub. It's always a pleasure. It's always great, a feeling of great pride when I come back to T-Hub because, it's like seeing your kid growing up. PJN was just telling me, he was very fondly reminiscing that on 2000, was it? Right, 6th June. See, the state of Telangana was formed on the 2nd of June, 2014. And I think exactly 2 days or 3 days later, myself and my then IT secretary, Harpreet Singh, and there was somebody else, I don't remember who, we were all at ISB, the Indian School of Business. And then we had a meeting with PJN and his team of Triple IT. We had Ajit was then, Ajit Rangnekar, I don't know where he is now. Is he here? Rangnekar was the dean of ISB. And then there was a bunch of us, including Srini and others, who all, initially sat there, were trying to process, understand a little bit about innovation, try and understand, what needs to be done in Hyderabad, etc. One of the questions very innocuously that I asked, I think that may have been very naive at that point of time to all those who gathered around. I said, what is the X factor that Bangalore has, which Hyderabad doesn't? Why is it that we see, this whole coinage of Silicon Valley and, a city of startups, etc., etc., that entire sheen around Bangalore, not in Hyderabad and other cities. So then we started thinking. We said, what are the elements that Hyderabad is missing? And then, we started thinking, and then that's how PJN was gracious. He said, we have a bare shell in Triple IT campus that you can use to set up possibly India's largest technology incubator. So that's how the whole concept of T-Hub evolved over a couple of hours of conversation. And I was super delighted because, PJN offered me something that was readily available almost. All we needed to do was basically spruce it up, do up the interiors and get going. So that's how 2015, on the 5th of November, exactly 7 years ago, the first building of T-Hub was launched. Once it came into being, I think it spurred a lot of chatter, it spurred a lot of conversations, it spurred a lot of very interesting discussions among the youngsters, among entrepreneurs, among the startup community that a government is actually driving. Because if you look around the world, very, very rarely do you see governments actually playing the role of enablers. Governments typically come out with policies. Governments typically come out with regulatory compliances. In fact, governments more often than not end up being stiflers. If you look at what's happening in the Web3 and crypto world today, I think you would agree with me. Governments typically end up being the stiflers of innovation in a lot of ways. Because, typically we tend to say, okay, this is not right, that is not right, and, you should not be doing this, there are lines you don't cross, etc., etc. That kind of tends to put a huge roadblock on innovation. But in our case, what we did was we put together a cross-sectional team with the best minds from the government, industry, and academia coming together to build a truly world-class institution. And today, when PJN was complimenting me and telling me that, he fondly remembers and recollects days we had met in 2014, I am also equally proud and equally happy that it is shaped up so well and, so beautifully. But I think as MS put it, where is he? Right. So much to grow. And I don't think I'll have the luxury of calling my state a startup state for very long, because the state has now been around for 8+ years. So I think there comes a time when you have to start growing up also. Can't be called a startup anymore. So therefore, my ambition and our ambition, I think collective ambition of all of us should be to really scale that summit and to make Hyderabad truly, I wouldn't want to call it a Silicon Valley, somewhat of an equivalent of a Silicon Valley. And now I do believe that we also have done some good work, and therefore we are rated by Startup Genome Report among the top 10 cities in the global ecosystem in the affordable talent. We are rated also by the same report among the top 15 in the Asian ecosystem for funding. We are also rated among the top 15 in the global ecosystem for bang for buck category. I think that really matters and deserves a big round of applause. Not just to T-Hub, not just to the T-Hub team here, but to the entire startup ecosystem in Hyderabad. I think we have just started. I think we really have a long way to go, but I think the start has been good. The beginning is, like they say, well begun is half done. The awards ceremony that we just concluded also showcased some of the best and brightest of our startups at various stages of their life cycle in a wide spectrum of sectors, because I was looking at food tech companies, I was also looking at construction tech startups, space tech, people in retail, so robotics. Very, very impressed and personally delighted with the depth of the startup ecosystem that has been shaping up in Hyderabad and Telangana. But I do believe that this recognition that was just conferred will also further enthuse the 6,000+ startups in Hyderabad and Telangana to actually have larger goals and larger ambitions and to be best in the class. Happy to also share with you that, like MS said, wherever I go, whenever I showcase the T-Hub building, the question that I get asked is, beyond the cool interiors and the very cool, ultra uber exterior, what have you achieved? That's the question I keep getting asked. I think the biggest takeaway for me and for the government has been, while we have spent hundreds of crores, funding this world's largest technology incubator, the biggest takeaway for me and a personal delight for me has been the impact T-Hub has been able to create on the startup ecosystem. It's not just the incubatees here. It's not just the startups who've come here, who've gotten funding, which also is quite good. But I think the impact of T-Hub has not just been felt in Telangana alone, but it has now become sort of a role model to the rest of the country. We have ministers from various states in India coming to us, asking us. Srini was just telling me how our MOU that we signed with Goa government back in 2017, if I remember correctly, or 2018, with the then Chief Minister Lakshmikant Parsekar, who was also the IT Minister then, is now shaping up rather well and is now actually, giving room for Goa also to start working on something very similar to T-Hub. Likewise, we have had another 8 different Indian states who had come forward, who actually wanted to learn, understand how T-Hub was done by the government and how this actually can become an exemplar for their states as well. We've impacted more than 2,000 startups through various programs and initiatives, that is T-Hub alone, approached over 600 corporates for innovation programs, and have created a pool of more than 100+ mentors who are tasked with nurturing the next generation of entrepreneurs. We're happy to share also that till date, more than $1.9 billion in funding has been raised by T-Hub cohort startups. The world-class infrastructure, supported by a strong ecosystem, is attracting entrepreneurs from across India. We also have fruitfully collaborated with many key partners and government entities such as Department of Science and Technology, Niti Aayog, IDEX, MeitY, corporates, academic institutions such as ISB, IIT Hyderabad, various other IITs, Nalsar, and also ecosystem enablers such as TAI, HYCEA, FTCCI, etc. And we also, of course, by way of collaboration, have coordinated and collaborated with a number of other incubators from across India and across the world as well. T-Hub also represents not just the entrepreneurial zeal, but also the values we cherish, values of integrity, humility, excellence, collaboration, and of course, innovation. By bringing all these jigsaw pieces of the puzzle together, we aim to break the silos and ensure that Hyderabad is the go-to place for any entrepreneur in India and possibly by extension in the world as well. Very recently, I think last week, we've had the entire team of bureaucracy led by our Chief Secretary, do a workshop here, a day-long workshop in T-Hub, which was hosted by my very able Principal Secretary, Jayesh Ranjan. I would like to thank him because, the feedback I've gotten with Jayesh's presentation and the entire ecosystem's participation, particularly being led by T-Hub, was so good. In fact, one of the principal secretaries wrote a message to me saying, typically in the world of bureaucracy, innovation is a word that we don't hear very often. And when we were at T-Hub and when we interacted with all the startups, now we are excited to also elevate our game. We are excited also to bring in the innovation angle into our sphere of work so that we can contribute more to this state that has been growing brilliantly. Our finance, Special Chief Secretary Finance called me particularly, and he told me something very, very exciting. He said, the state of Telangana, gross state domestic product has increased from 5,06,000 crores in 2014 to 11.55 lakh crores in 2021. But what he said was something even more exciting. He said, sir, we grew at 11% on an average, despite COVID, despite a lot of other challenges. But he said, if we can only grow 4% more by way of, and if that 4% can come by way of incremental innovation, then this 11.55 lakh crore of GSDP can become 30 lakh crore in the next 5 years. So that is the ability, that is the kind of tangential intervention that innovation can bring in, even into government. So I'm super delighted that not only has the private sector and youngsters and startups have been enthused and impacted by T-Hub, even the governments, we are typically called the most jaded, in the political class, the bureaucracy. We get laughed at, we get scoffed at, we are not taken very seriously by the startup community. But I can tell you, even we are kicked up about the whole idea of bringing in the element of innovation into our sphere of life. And I've been saying this many times, but let me say it again. For all the startups in T-Hub, I have promised you before, and I have asked my Chief Secretary and Principal Secretary IT as well to reiterate, and I'll reiterate again on my personal behalf as well. Government will be your first customer. We will give you a proof of concept should there be that need. So please reach out to us. But the expectations of us are huge. Like MS said, we have just reached the base camp and we have built beautiful buildings, infrastructure, platform for young Indians to come innovate. But I think since the expectations in terms of impact, expectations in terms of the sustainable enterprises that are created, number of jobs most importantly, because we are a growing country, a growing economy, growing state, we need more and more jobs being created. Because as we all know, today's startup is tomorrow's large MNC, which creates millions and millions of jobs, complex societal problems being solved by way of innovation, even complex problems of governance being addressed in terms of better citizen grievance redressal. So, all in all, the expectations are high, and my compliments to the entire team of T-Hub, to all those who work from day one, to the team that's working now. Onwards and upwards, and I look forward to many, many more anniversaries and many, many more of these celebrations. Thank you. Jai Telangana.
Thank you so much, sir, for those wonderful words of inspiration. We will surely one day be better than Silicon Valley. I hope and wish that dream comes true with all the partners and everyone here together. Now, I would like to welcome Anish, who is the CDO of T-Hub. He's pivoted himself from being a Kargil veteran Indian Air Force pilot to being entrepreneur and helped startup Mygate to build two multi-million companies as well. As part of our 6M2P framework, we would like to present our impactful and metric-driven startup programs, showcase our value partners, and pay gratitude to our mentors. Floor is all yours, Anish.
Thank you, Priyanka. I think, like the minister rightly said, right, it's time for the building to show what can be done inside the building. Right? We need to move more the narrative into what is happening inside the building. We will focus on three things, essentially. Right? The first is the methodology piece. Right? What happens next? Startups, today, around 87,000 startups are registered in India. Right? And only around 4,700 odd startups have raised some kind of funding, which means that they've got a sort of some kind of a market validation. That means around 94% of the startups today are not getting market validation in some form or the other. How can we reduce that percentage? Right? And that is what we want to build in everything inside the building. The first aspect is that of methodology. What do I do next? So we have identified saying that in the life of a startup, from the idea stage to the IPO stage, there are many breakpoints where a startup seems to be failing. So we've identified these breakpoints. For example, if you have an idea, right, how do I make sure that there is a solid business model behind it, even before you start spending on a product, right? So from the idea stage, how do you create a product stage? From the product, how do you get market validation? From the market validation, how do I get you business ready? From business readiness, how do I get you to funding readiness? Right? At all of these places, what we try to do is we try to get an intervention of a methodology. We put you through a course. We design the course correct, specific to that need. So we have designed something called 100 days to anything, which means we have a 100-day course to get how your product ready. We have a 100-day course to how to get your business model ready. A 100-day course to how to get your funding readiness. If I have to give you an example, right, there's a doctor. He knows that there's a medical problem. He knows a solution to his problem, but he is not upskilled enough to create a product out of it. So that is where we come in and try to get him ready and run him through a product readiness program. Now, once he had his product ready, how does he take it to the market? How does he validate with the market? How does he do his pricing right? Does he identify his user right? Does he identify his client right? It might be somebody who might be using it, but somebody else who's paying for it. How does he identify these points? So we get a business readiness program, right? And all of these interventions is entirely programmatic, designed to increase the probability of success. So when we realized like MSR rightly said, it's all about metrics, numbers, how you look at numbers, from different directions. So we did an outreach and called for startups. We realized that there are so many potential startups outside. So the first step is to identify the startup which has the highest probability of success. Today, all our courses have an acceptance rate of 4%, which means for a cohort size of 20, we get approximately 500 applicants. Now, this cohort size of 20, we understand that there are two interventions that need to be required. Right? One is that we need to have a really very strong program. And second, we need to ensure that startup founders, despite their busy schedules, engage with the program. So all of our programs have got 8 topics, depending on what program you are choosing to sign up for. If you're a product readiness program, the interventions will be different. The topics will be different. Now, each of the topic, for example, if you're a part of the Lab 32 program, it's a 100-day programs. We take 8 topics there. One could be your price discovery, one could be your go-to-market, one could be all of those things. Each one for 1 week. And each week, you have 4 interventions. The first one is a classroom session, right? We call the best of the industry out there. We could have professors from ISB. If it's a product program, we have professors from IIT, Triple IT coming and doing those classroom sessions. Right? The next intervention on the same topic is from a unicorn founder. They come and they tell me, how did I solve my go-to-market program? He brings his experience of turning into a billion-dollar company onto the table to those startups. The third intervention is that we have a lot of these worksheets which happens. So we assigned one mentor who has done exactly that. If you're a fintech startup, if you have a fintech startup who wants go-to-market ready, so we get you a fintech mentor who has done go-to-market for the past 25 years. He sits along with you and he then does your entire worksheet with you. And on the final intervention is where you sum up everything and your go-to-market ready is ready. Next topic, next topic, next topic. So in 100 days, you are really ready to come out into the market. The second most important thing is how do I get the founders to engage with the program. So we, depending sure on their engagement, we bucket them into red, amber, green. So if you are engaging more than 80% with all my initiatives, then you fall in the green bucket. And going back to analytics, we have realized that typically any startup which is in the green bucket, during that 100-day period, he's seen a revenue growth of 400%. He's seen a pipeline growth, sales pipeline growth of 7x, that is 700%. And at the end of the cohort, he has received on an average 3 offers for funding. So we go back and tell the startups, listen, if you want me to create impact for you, you need to engage with me. So I have got a great selection criteria. I have got a great program. I run engagement with the founders, and hence what comes out will be a really great startup which comes out. So this is how we run our methodology. That is one of the 6 M's that MSR was mentioning. The second one is mentorships. We understand the importance of mentorship. We understand that we cannot run typical programs, interventions, right? If there is a fintech startup for, let's again go to market or sales, I will not be able to run a cohort for fintech startups, right? So we engage them with really high quality mentors. We've got around 170 odd mentors today. We have a selection criteria for mentors, which means that all of these mentors are at least senior VPs or C-suites and above. If they are coming from a founder background, we see that they are at least raised a couple of rounds of funding, which means they have progressed into some sort of validation from the market of their business models, and they're bringing actual value onto the market. So so on an average, every cohort engages with around 170 hours of mentorship, of really high quality mentorship. While on one hand, we are providing value for the startups from the mentors, we understand that there is also a need to provide value for the mentors by virtue of engaging with the startups. The first thing that the mentors realized is that by engaging with these startups, they are engaging with the frontier tech of what is going on in their industry. Which means that technology today is, this is how startups look at technology, right? There are multiple building blocks of technology. AI, AR, VR, MR, AI, MI, all of these building blocks, computer vision, neural networking, and all of that, IoT and all of that. Startups today are using these individual technologies in different or multiple combinations to come out with a solution. It is not possible for any one corporate to have domain expertise in all of these in their company. And it's also not possible for a full-time senior vice president or anything to find out how startups in his domain are creating new technologies or new solutions. So they get access to really cutting-edge frontline technologies developments which are happening. The mentors also get a lot of access to T-Hub, all of T-Hub's facilities, all of T-Hub's amenities, and so on and so forth. Right? So that is the second piece where we really realize the value of mentors who are contributing to T-Hub. The last part is, throughout the journey, a startup has multiple requirements, right? He has the requirements, for example, he has a cloud requirements, right? He has cloud requirements where he wants cloud storage, he wants cloud computing, he wants testing, he wants developing platform. It could be a BFSI requirement. He wants banking, he wants financial, he wants insurance. He has 5 people. An insurance agency typically will not be able to give him insurance that he gives for a 5,000 people company. So how do I leverage this scale to build value or get value to that five member startup, right? So what we did is we categorized these requirements into 13 categories. Every category has got 3-4 subcategories depending on the category, and every subcategory has got 3 or 4 vendors which we have selected who give us a great deal. What does that mean? It means that today if a startup engages with T-Hub, the day he engages, he gets an onboarding package. You get approximately $10,000 of AWS credit. You get $10,000 of $5,000 of HubSpot credit, for example, and so on and so forth. So when you start, the first time you engage with T-Hub, you walk off with somewhere close to around $20,000-$25,000 worth of credits, which you can actually use to start your business. And how are we thinking at a full end value services, which means that we have signed up, for example, we have signed up with Uber, we've signed up with Oyo, we have signed up with Hard Rock Cafe, and we've signed up with a travel partner. So if my startup lands in Delhi, he gets into an Uber, he gets an X% discount. He checks into an OYO, he gets an X% discount. He has his meeting, he gets an X% discount in Starbucks, and he wants to book his flight ticket back. He again gets a discounted price back. So I think all of this is how we are looking at an end-to-end partnership for all of our startups. So the aim of this building is to create that entire environment inside the building. If I want to get my pitch deck ready, I've got 7 VCs in the building. I just walk across the corridor, show my pitch deck to him and tell him, sir, where are my holes? Tell me where do I need to plug? Tell me what is going on in the market, how are investors looking at pitch decks today? Right? He wants his Google Trades, he comes here. He wants legal support. Right? We've signed up with legal support. Adam, HR, legal, finance, compliance, accounting, auditing, you name it, we've got partners for all of them. Right? So I think that is how T-Hub is starting to build value for all of his startups at any intervention. So I probably will rest my case here. And please, if there is any requirement that you can ever think of, please reach out to T-Hub for any support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anish. Now I welcome JS sir to launch the Menti handbook. Request KTR Garu to come onto the stage to unveil the Mentor-Mentee handbook and guidelines.
So as a part of our mentorship program, what we've realized is that both the mentors and the mentees need guidelines on how to approach with each other. So what we realized is we have created a mentor handbook, which is the do's, don'ts, best practices of how they should be engaging with mentors, and a mentee handbook on what to do and what not to do when they are engaging with mentors. So,
One last thing before Minister Garu has other obligations, so before he goes. So I just want to announce today a very important day in the history of T-Hub. We are launching a partnership with an entity called Redberry, which is based out of Chicago. The intent of this is to basically create co-create innovation programs, give our startups a soft landing in Chicago. And this we are doing in partnership with a large entity called Redberry. There's an entrepreneur called Deepak Vyas from our very own Telangana, who's been actively working with us for the last 9 months. So this is going to be our first, significant soft landing post in the holy land of the US. So I'd like to thank, first of all, Jayesh Garu for our support and Minister Garu for our support in getting this going. Thank you.
Like